Welcome to Grab Lives, everyone. I'm your host, John Vargas. Thank you for listening. And first and foremost, everything we say and do on this podcast platform has nothing to do with the views or the opinions of the City of Los Angeles Fire Department. So our podcast is supporting 343 and 343fund.org. What you can do is go on that website, and if you are interested in donating to firefighters who need your help, you can go on there and donate and help someone get the healing they need. And what they do is they send people to go do ibogaine treatments, and ibogaine's been a tremendous medicine to help people heal. And I have not come across anything as profound as ibogaine, and the stories that I've heard with people with physical injuries, with illnesses, PTSD and depression, heavy addiction. They go do ibogaine and they get a turnaround in their life. So you can check out 343fund.org. You can donate $3.43, and it's going to help someone who really needs help. So go ahead and try that out. I'm offering also a program called the Inside and Out program. What this is, you work with me for 90 days, and I'm here to assist you in getting through some blocks, some barriers of yourself, biologically, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And the people who come do this program, they have a complete turnaround in their life. They look like different people once they're done. And what it is, I support you with the tools you need to see the truth of yourself, to get past the hidden blocks and the hidden things that you're not wanting to face. And it's a really powerful experience. So if you're interested, it's a 90-day program. Just message the Grab Lives Instagram. And please like, subscribe, Grab Lives. Help support our algorithm to help people get the help they need to reverse trauma, to reverse PTSD, to understand themselves in a very dynamic situation with a career that is deemed one of the highest careers to get cancer, one of the highest careers to commit suicide, one of the highest careers to have a divorced family, and so forth. So I'm here to be a systems buster against those odds. So please like, subscribe as much as possible. Today I have Dani Fontaine on. Dani Fontaine's a really fascinating person. She's got multi-award winning products in reference to CBD. She's got a CBD salve that has been deemed one of the most powerful salves that's out there to rid the body of pain. Her dad was one of the first legal hemp farms post-prohibition of cannabis. And this podcast episode is really fascinating because she is a mad scientist in the cannabis industry and the way she uses cannabis to help people heal. She takes pictures of the human body and looks at your energetics, your system, and will look at the imbalances and know exactly what you're dealing with on a multifaceted scale. So she is very talented. I'm very happy to have done this episode. There's a couple minor kinks in this episode because of the fact that we did a remote episode with this one, but she's definitely out there as far as like world renowned understanding on cannabis and what cannabis offers. So I really love this episode. Just be patient because her daughter's in the background talking and get in the middle of the episode. So just check it out. I love you guys. Take care.
It's time for Grab Lives.
Right.
We're back.
We are here. So Dani Fontaine, thank you so much for everything you do. You are a systems buster. You're a trailblazer. And we had done a whole hour of an episode earlier, and just everything got fucked, right? So we're just gonna redo the episode, right?
Cool.
But I was telling Dani before we started recording, she's a mad scientist, like an endocannabinoid scientist, and so I really honor you and your knowledge, your wisdom. And so I want people to really understand the work you do. And I feel like we're not even going to get to all of it. So we're going to get to maybe just sections of the stuff you do. So I think there's one of the things that I wanted to start with was just the biofield thing, the biofield workup you do, right? And we were talking about how it's done through the Kirlian photography, right? Like the origin of Kirlian photography. Like I had read like a book. It was called like the Psychic Discoveries behind the Iron Curtain. That's where I found the Kirlian photography. So like it was like two researchers studying the phenomena of what Russians were doing, which were doing like remote viewing, and they were basically doing all this crazy psychic shit. And so when they started studying all these Russians and all the work they were doing, they're like the Kirlian photography came up where these people came up with a camera where they take a picture of something, right? And it had an auric field over it, is what they call an aura, right? Or it's photons of energy around an object from everything has one. And so they took this Kirlian photography, and now you have a machine where you put your fingers in there, takes a image of your meridians or whatever it is, the imprint of your system, and now you read the entire field of what someone has, right?
It's pretty cool. It's really cool. It's refined my work. Like, it's so cool.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pull up a picture right now, and like this is exactly what she's pulling up when she's doing a reading on you, and you can read everything. It has all the information available to you to see like what type of imbalances are there, right? And like
Yeah.
imbalances from emotional trauma to biological imbalances to psychological imbalances, whatever it may be, right? Sleep imbalances, the whole gambit.
Like when I look at that picture, when you pulled it up, just briefly, I zoomed in. So like if I were to look at that human just by like looking at him or this makeup, because it's a he or she, whoever, measured this person's dealing with thyroid issues. They're dealing with sacrum issues. They're dealing with, let's see, gut issues and mammary gland issues.
Holy shit.
Just by looking at the field and
At the palm or like the whole field?
The human that's standing there.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And that really, when I look at someone's field, it really breaks them down. Like people can't hide when they come, to me. It's kind of like how I like to see it. Like when you measure someone's energetic makeup, there's no way that's a lie. I love how truthful it is that someone can see who and how they're made up of in their field. So they know that what they're doing in their life is impacting them and how it's impacting them, so you can actually see how and where to bring things back into homeostasis. A lot of times blood work gives us so much, certain things gives us so much, like even TCM, it gives us the meridian channels, This is measuring the photonic energy throughout the meridian channels. So ultimately, this back end of this whole equipment is measuring your whole biofield of your organ centers as well. And so that's why when I said this person's dealing with that stuff is because the back end or whatever, whoever built it, which is a doctor out of Russia, by the way, who founded all of this amazing equipment and licenses it out here throughout the world, actually. There's only about 3,000 of them here in America right now. And I'm one of them, in Colorado, I think I'm like one of 4. There's really not that many of them. But I do it at a different approach because I use the endocannabinoid system as my guiding force. Because I knew the system and knew the field before I knew about this Kirlian, measurement system for me to be able to basically affirm my own work and affirm my own intuition. And so, because me working with the plant, I've actually channeled the plant for It's been solidly about 13 years, I would say, like really knew that I was like channeling the plant. And I was like, oh, that's what's going on. Um, and that's how I've been able to kind of unwind all the things that I've been able to accomplish in this life, is because she guides me. Like, she sets up everything that I need to do, all the things that need to happen on the planet that cannabis needs to be involved in and or evolved in. That's what I'm going to do, because I'm listening, I'm attuning, and I'm doing the work. And a lot of people that come here, they don't listen. They're not listening to the signs. They're not listening to their own intuition. They're not listening, and listening is such a huge factor in our evolution, because if we listened more, the free will choices would be much more in our favor. You know what I'm saying? They would be stuff that we would actually be able to collectively evolve together, versus just like so individual, like on a cell. Like, I like to use this expression as like cancer is when a cell gets depressed. Basically, the cell gets sick and it gets alone, right? This is like the human that gets depressed. Okay, they get alone, they retreat, they kind of go away. Their communication to the outside world, or the cell to the other cell, starts going away. Okay, so the communication gets lost. So its ability to be able to share any information starts getting so inward, it starts putting up barriers, blockages. I consider those barriers and blockages toxin disruptors, trauma, and genetic mutations. Okay, things that disrupt the ability to communicate. So that's the same thing, like a person putting up their barriers, basically not communicating as much with their friends, not sharing with their family, not being able to go outdoors and experience joy, going on a hike, certain things that human nature we should be doing to stay in communication and community together.
Yeah, so going back to what you were saying about listening,
Yeah,
like that requires an attunement to being still. And that stillness comes in as a practice. And so you have to really cue in to listen. It's an art form, essentially. And when you play with art forms, it has to you have to use some form of curiosity with it in order for like this imaginative self to kind of come in through that art, right, of listening. So
yeah.
kind of giving a spectrum of what you're doing. And speaking of like of connection and listening, indigenous cultures understood this. They were so connected that they spoke to plants, and this is what they learned to do by listening, right? And so some people will hear this and they'll be like, "This is fucking crazy," right? And that's most of what you really will get that reaction from. But um, I heard anthropologists talking to some indigenous cultures in the Amazon, right? And they had this plant, medicine, what they call chancapidra,
I knew you were
and
going
it's
to
a
say
and so chancapidra breaks
that.
down like kidney stones, right?
Yeah,
It's a really great
all
mechanism.
stones, actually all type stones and biofilms and buildups. It's an amazing like breaker.
So I've used it myself
Yeah, me too.
for a detox, and it works amazing. And it was interesting how this anthropologist asked the people like, "How did you know about this?" And like, and they said like, "Well, you don't hear them speak because we can." So they understood the language, and it's not necessarily the fact that it's the fact that we're not learning their language
Yeah,
and we're not understanding it. So we have to go back to the basics of the art of listening to understand how to speak the language of the body, how to speak the language of plants, how to speak the language of nature.
yeah,
And all this comes back to basic fundamentals of remembering things that have been lost, like lost knowledge and information. And so I hope people can grasp this concept, because it is something that's within us as human beings. It's our purpose on this planet, and it's our purpose through our evolution to relearn these things. Most of it has been distorted by what propaganda, Western medicine, by just cutting things with the scalpel and then again getting hit with paperwork and prescriptions. Like
Yeah.
that's not health. That's a
Yeah.
business. You know what I mean? So we're coming back to the basics. And so with in reference to what the art of listening can lead to is healing, can lead to intuition, can lead to more connectedness, which is what health is. And so I love how you're explaining that even at a cellular level, right? A cancer cell is lost its connection with the entirety of the whole. And
Mhm.
so that's what we're trying to come back to. We're rebirthing the
Mhm.
connection to the whole. And so even like as human beings, like you see everyone's all separated through this identification process.
Mhm.
And that's a mechanism to keep us all separate. So like we have to realize like we're coming back to out of separateness and to the understanding like we're all part of this one giant organism.
Yeah. And that's the endocannabinoid system. I mean, you just spoke endocannabinoid system's job is communication. It is signal. It is keeping us in touch with us. It's keeping us in touch with spirit, with God. It's teaching, that is the signaling communication system. There is not another one. People think fascia is it. Fascia's not it. Fascia's not it. I promise you. Fascia holds the receptors that hold the signaling ability. Okay. So if its ability isn't there, it can't do its job. So, and this is so much deeper, and I'm going to try and make it very simple, but ultimately, let me think on that just real fast. We have to be able to we have to be able to send the right information, just like we communicate with our neighbors, if we communicate in a proper community. Like when we go next door and we learn our neighbor and we're next door to our neighbor for 20 years and they end up becoming our friends, like that is good cellular communication. You know, for me, that is like, oh, that's a strong, rich ECS because the ability to communicate is there. The coolest thing about the endocannabinoid system, one of the coolest things, because there's so many things, is its process in birth and its process in death, and how it is the main, it's the main system for everything. So if I could explain that very simply, there's a pyramid. At the top is the endocannabinoid system. Everything else underneath it is going to be all the other operations, the nervous systems. Okay, so parasympathetic and sympathetic. Okay, we have this, balance, which people say this is the thing that controls us, is our nervous system. Well, there's something that has to control the nervous system, because the nervous system in our body, like the way that we're made, doesn't actually control itself. It is receiving information, and that then passes it down. The information right there is the endocannabinoid system. Because that is the thing that is signaling everything in to bring in here, to signal in around. It's the one communication system that has information inside the cell membrane and outside the cell membrane. Okay, because it has to be able to communicate all of the information from one cell to the next cell. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean it's a receptor and also a transmitter.
Yes. And its ability to signal its own production. So, because we have to be able to stay in homeostasis. So, like, as best as we can. And what I mean by homeostasis is, yes, there's a peak of homeostasis where it's peace. But ultimately, us just being alive is a space of homeostasis because we are alive. Okay, now how out of coherence we are really depends on each person, but we are here in as best balance as we can be. Otherwise, we would be dead. Okay, so our endocannabinoid system is the thing that brings us in. I'll bring back to the beginning, what I was just talking about, brings us into the world. It's the thing that communicates first from the sperm to the egg. Without the ECS communicating the information, like, yes, you're the one that I want. Let's lead here. That is the endocannabinoid system that they do not teach us in school. So if anybody wants to do their research, they can take it one more level deep and they can understand what the endocannabinoid system does in the birth, in the engagement process, in the postpartum process, in every aspect of who we are, from the very first meetup of the sperm and the egg all the way through life to the end, last phasing and shutting down of our receptors to stop receiving information to keep us alive. Does that make sense? Because it has to be able, the receptors are the one receiving the main integrative information from us and all of our surroundings, all of our senses, our smell, our eyes, our sound, our taste, our touch. This is what starts shutting down slowly. You know, if it's a slow death, if it's a quick death, totally different type of process, but it still is the thing that shuts us down first before anything else shuts down.
Yeah. So you're saying it built into the human template, we have endocannabinoids already built into us. And so when people go smoke a joint, they're now connecting to a plant based on a system that's already designed to receive the medicine from that plant. That's what you're saying.
Well, yeah, but not just smoking a joint, breath.
Right. I'm just giving like
Yeah.
an example because people
Totally.
just reference cannabis, right, as just, some kid that's like 16 hitting a bong in his garage. You know what I mean? And he's a deadbeat and he's a loser, right? That's like the common image we get of cannabis because it's been just played out, right, over a period of time of propaganda, over a time of demonizing something based on a stereotype of someone who just can't get a job, wastes his life and gets the munchies, right? That's like, so we're trying to break the system on how we're viewing something like a master plant. And this was what I was telling you earlier. I was like, hey, cannabis is a master plant. And so I'd love for you to kind of describe what a master plant is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's the master. I mean, there's nothing better than her, in my opinion. I mean, like we were also talking earlier about actual plant medicine master plants, because I look at all herbs and herbal makeup as like a plant medicine, because it is all medicinal for us, all of it. Clove, peppermint, all the way from the basics, all the way to ayahuasca and ibogaine. It's just a level of what they're at and what they're doing on a receptor level. Okay. Only certain plants are psychedelic. Okay. These ones are more so considered like master plants. Now we have mushrooms and cannabis in their own realm that, in my opinion, are master plants, like the master plants for the planet and then for the human and the total being experience, not just humans, but all beings with a spine, is because we evolved with this ability to, so our endocannabinoid system is this is where, let me just say this real fast. Really what tricked us was when the endocannabinoid system was studied and discovered back in the 80s, basically them terming it endocannabinoid, because really we are tending to it in so many different ways outside of cannabis. Cannabis just happens to be the lock and key to this whole system, okay? And that is because it's our phyto makeup. It's our twin makeup outside of us on a protein level, on an enzyme level, on a lipid level, on a, cannabinoid identical level, on the terpenes, to how the terpenes interact with our body. It's like a perfect plant for us, for the makeup. And then for the planet, it does exactly what it does to us as it does to the planet, because all things are micro macro. So for us, cellularly, what it does to us is it cleans our cells. It makes us superhumans. So when we're able, it gives us the best signaling for our system, because it is a lipid-rich plant. It has just the best balance for us to take in to be able to digest, to be able to uptake. That's why hemp protein is fantastic for us. It's the best protein for us to be able to digest, is because this is why it's not just cannabinoids, okay? And not only cannabis tends to the endocannabinoid system. From my studies of my 17 years of working with human bodies, I've put together the fact that the endocannabinoid system is actually the main modulating communication system from us to ourselves, us to other people, and us back to spirit. It is the main signaling compound, okay? So it's the thing that makes sure that the information goes from here to here. And if that system is not doing its job, so it's not receiving the information and signaling the information, and then signaling it to signal it, to signal it to output it, okay? Does that make sense? So it's doing the whole job of everything that it should do.
Mm.
We are not in good communication with either ourselves, our neighbor, our friends, our family, and or let alone spirit, you know, because this ability to communicate is and has been, since it's been discovered, it's been attacked because they're aware of its ability. And this is why they don't educate in the medical system. You know, this is why they are fully aware. I've read case studies. They're fully aware of what this system is. And there is more studies on this system than in any other part of the human being, even heart, even brain. There's that many studies, clinical and case studies, that's how many there is. It's like they know what's going on. And then they suppress it and attack it, not only with pharma medicines, but they attack it through all of our sensory intake. So sound, they mess with the sound. Okay, so I was talking with Benjamin with Unchained, and I was like, listen, so what's happening is everything's a code. Like all of our makeup is a code. So when we receive it, whether it's a good code and matches our receptors that have the proper intake for that code, it's going to receive properly. Otherwise, it's going to be an off print, is what I tell people. So it's either going to come in properly and just go straight in the fucking receptor, or it's going to start messing with it and it's going to start throwing off the receptor to start doing different things and offshooting. Either being too open or too closed is what that's going to ultimately start wearing and tearing on the receptors. When the receptors don't receive the information properly, how the fuck the cells are going to send the information from cell to cell? You tell me. I don't understand that science, but someone could maybe teach me. I don't get it. And I'm pretty good with science, you know? So if someone could, and that's why they suppress it, is because this system is tended through all sensory intake. So to get back into homeostasis, that's why nature is so good for us, because it's tuning our ECS to come back into that person. That's why anybody can go into nature and get better. It doesn't have a rhythm specifically, except for to you when you're out there, because it's attuning to your frequency field. It's attuning to what you are deficient of. So the sounds are going to come in, the smells will come in, the soils will need and change what it needs to be in order to hit what deficiencies you need. Like, this is mama, this is Gaia, this is our main nectar, you know, for us to be able to live our fullest life as the endocannabinoid system, in taking this information properly, putting it in us, and then us expressing our greatest self. And if we can't do that because the information can't signal and it can't be received right, look at the fucking world. No wonder it's the world. It's not even just one part of the world. It's the whole fucking world. And so
we have to realize, like, there are systems that are in power, that are in control, that are keeping people sick on purpose, and any type of man-made construct is now disconnecting each individual human organism to keep them sick, separated, and away from what's leading up to this rapid evolution that's taking place. So the rapid evolution that's taking place is one of the most profound prophecies that has been done by so many different indigenous cultures And it's been now because they know this,
Yeah.
whoever's in charge. Now let's just keep it at they, because
Yeah.
I don't want to get too far into that. But
Don't take me that much.
but that part is going to want people from awakening to themselves as the most divine person they can be, out
Of
of
course.
power, out of the ability to speak the truth, out of the ability to enhance bioavailability, right?
Mhm.
And people think I'm crazy for having a grounding mat at work, and they barely understand like that we are technically like these batteries, right? A battery pack
Yeah.
or a channel or tube of electricity.
Mhm.
And what happens is if you don't have a ground, that's going to short circuit at some point, and your
Mhm.
electrical voltage has to have an output at some point. So grounding yourself is one of the most important things. And I was telling you earlier, like I don't just have one thing that I do. It's about stacking treatments.
Mhm.
And so stacking treatments is about taking bits and pieces of what's really profoundly effective and using it inside of a daily practice or inside of your network of your deck of cards or your hard drive to use. And grounding is an absolute necessary thing for me because I go to work, I work on an ambulance, or I work on a fire apparatus,
Mhm.
and I'm completely disconnected and discharged by wearing boots all day, wearing my uniform, and I'm gone at work for like 3+ days. I'm going into hospitals,
Yeah.
just being dysregulated by, man-made frequencies,
Yeah.
x-rays, MRIs, all that stuff that's around. And so
Mhm.
I can feel my field, my electrical voltage getting dumbed down.
Yeah.
And I feel bogged down when I come home. It's
Yeah.
just like there's nothing I can do about it. There's barely anything I can do about it. So, but I have a mission and a sense of service to do on this career path. So I have the awareness to it. You know what I mean? And what I found pretty interesting is when I do feel rejuvenized by nature. One thing is like going into the ocean, salt water. It's completely different feeling when I'm like at work.
Yeah.
So I just want people to understand like this is a part of health. You can do all the cold plunging, all the dieting, all the exercise, but if you don't ground yourself, you're missing a very important mechanism of overall health because your
Yeah.
voltage that you're emitting is so important. I'm gonna
Yeah.
pull up like a this picture here like that. This is like probably maybe one of the best pictures I could have pulled up, but because this is the toroidal field that we have.
Yes.
And this field, right? If you are in stress, if you are bogged, it's just your cortisol is just revved up all the time. You're in fight or flight all the time. And let's add some emotional trauma like shame, guilt, fear. Everything now you're going to create holes in that field that's around you. And now you're susceptible to parasitic energies, you're susceptible to um, negative frequencies. And so a lot of these people, if they have, parasitic energies attached to this auric field or this bioelectrical field, people can go crazy. They
Well,
literally will go crazy if it's attached to, a bunch of other things because they're not connected to themselves anymore. Now they're
mm,
hearing voices or whatever it is, right? And it's a slippery slope from there. You know what I mean?
well, it is not just holes that actually come into the field. It is um, like that come and penetrate through. I mean, there are basically multiple different types of, depending on the trauma, depends on, I guess you could say, the imprint. Okay. Because it's not all the same. Because and that's why, and how we can actually tell when we read fields, whether it be with the machine or in Reiki, is to be able to understand, like, okay, so this is what's going on in the field, and this is the type of trauma, this is that, like the depth of that trauma, because people have different traumas and it kind of mutates differently, again, really based on DNA in the physical form. So in the field is one thing, but whenever it hits us physically, it really depends on the makeup of the DNA. It really depends on where that person is in life. It really depends on what that person feeds themselves on a sensory level. If they're feeding themselves things that are disrupting their communication network, which is the ECS, they are constantly suppressing their ability to be able to be in tune. So we have to be able to low and slow shed things out of our body, because we have trillions of cells. And so this stuff stores, especially like emotional trauma, it stores on fat cells, it stores on immune cells, and it stores on glia cells. That is why we have so much cancer. That is why we have so much immunity issues. And that's why we have so much obesity issues, is because trauma stores actually on a cellular level, not in fascia. It stores in our fucking cells, and our cells hold that, and that becomes the disruptor. Okay. Then we have, depending on what that disruption is like that type of imprint. So let's just say you got in a car accident. It's going to be a hole. Okay. Let's say you had, a heartbreak. It's going to be a broken heart. You know what I'm saying? We're just using basic images,
Right.
That's what and how it would be imprinted in the field. And then whatever comes to that, whatever information wave comes to that, it's going to be like disrupted by that and or stopped and blocked and complete. So the information just won't get through. We just won't be able to communicate with ourselves. That's why we start going crazy. Let alone our partners or family, to be able to express vocally the throat chakra with what's going on in our gut, the solar plexus, that ability to push out our truth, that's not there anymore. Okay. And then let alone us be able to be in communication with God. Yes, people think that prayer and everything, that they are so into it. A lot of people pray because they're in fear, not because they're there for gratitude. And that's the discoherence of the relationship in the spiritual world, is people pray because they're fearful. They don't pray because they're fucking stoked. I pray because I'm fucking stoked and thankful and happy, like that I have everything that I have, my health and everything. My children's health. This is important to me. So I'm full of gratitude. I don't pray for them to be healthy. I pray because they are fucking healthy. And that's what the difference is with a good communicator and someone that's in tune with themselves versus someone that's not, because there's a fear factor that's in their field that's disrupting their ability to actually get into service to themselves and back into service to their community, back into service with God, we have to, this is all about the ECS. It is our communication.
No, you keep saying ECS, but I don't, if you mind breaking down that word, because you've said it a bunch and I know what you're talking about, but you haven't said it. So people can relate to what you're saying.
Endocannabinoid system.
Okay.
So if anybody, and again, they tricked us really when they put cannabinoid in there. I like to call it our energy communication system.
Got it.
Because it really is like much bigger than just cannabinoids. It really is much bigger than that. And so, and in the medical system, that's why we don't really have any other endocannabinoidologists or anybody that knows about the endocannabinoid system talking the way I do, is because they look at it at a very, scientifically studied perspective, which is really book-based, which is really lab-based.
Which is also religion. I feel like science is also another religion, because it's so much dogmatic. And it has to be this certain way or else it's not real.
Yeah.
And so it takes outside of the five senses, right? And it leads us into just honing in on these very minimal ways to find a solution, when the solution outside of that is somewhat deemed paranormal. It's deemed to be a phenomena. So phenomena cannot be scientific because it cannot be understood through the scientific method. But when we get into phenomena, we understand like phenomena is like a paradox. Like it can't be explained. It's like trying to explain like how the hell things are in contrast with one another. They need to coexist. Like good and evil needs to contrast with each other to exist.
Totally.
So these are duality things that exist, but there's something outside of duality,
Yeah.
which is a non-dualistic mesoteric way to look at things, which is that everything is an entirety of a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's what I was kind of telling you before is like, I've been taught now through Qigong masters and understanding the essence of Qi
Mm-hmm.
that consciousness is the master.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we look at consciousness, you can do all the ayahuasca, all the mushrooms, all the ibogaine. You can do all the therapy, all the EMDR. Now, if consciousness is still stuck at the top, which carries all the information, it is not going to be deemed available for you. Now that you're still going to get stuck into a loop. And so the
Yes.
consciousness has to come through and it channels through the central nervous system. And this is coming through ancient Chinese wisdom cultures who understood this stuff.
Yeah.
And they say its central nervous system is all it is a pathway or highway of information. And so the central nervous system now comes into the spinal cord, which is essentially an antenna. And so that information will now come in through the heart. And the heart is one of the databases of information because what it does is it emits its own biological field that goes
Mm-hmm.
up to 6 feet in distance.
Mm-hmm.
And that information is really where the healing is done in anyone who's experiencing any type of trauma. So from there, now you have it's exiting into the meridian system, which is just pathways or highways of information as well. Now regulating through the organ system. Now through the organ system, it's pretty interesting because it's regulated by elements.
Yeah.
And from there, it has its own direct information that's signaling the entire time of what's in balance. And it creates harmony within this cycle. And from there, now it comes out into the physical body, which now is going through the peripheral nervous system, which also carries that information. And that's like a basic knowledge of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting about Chinese medicine is that they don't consider the brain a primary organ that carries information.
Yeah.
Everything else in the body is signaling to the brain what is happening, what's out of dysfunction, what's out of balance, and so forth. So that down to the cellular level, what you're saying is like these things have an intelligence to them, and they're signaling the entire time, hey, this is what's going on. Let's experience some pain to show you what needs to be looked at. And you're not listening. You're not speaking the language, what we were talking about earlier, right?
Yeah.
So you got to learn the language or else you're going to be out of dysfunction, out of connection.
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the general function of how we operate, right?
Yeah.
And so what Danny is doing is going to be we're leading to the essence of what medicine is, which is essentially frequency.
Yes.
And so I literally put up this photo, and she broke down like 6 different imbalances just by barely looking at someone's field. Like that's insane, but that's how it should be. It's
how
like
it should. Yeah.
how has we've been so like shattered. The system has been so shattered to disconnect us, to make us sick, and it's just so fucking sad.
Well, it is what we've all agreed to experience, though, too. I mean, that's a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, so I won't go too down that rabbit hole. But ultimately, we all come here to learn stuff, and to embody and then to experience. Like, this is the whole point of the human being is the experience of it. Like, are we able to come here out of just forgetting who we are? Like, literally, we can't even remember that we have an auric field, is how disconnected we come here and are. We don't understand. And for people, it's even hard to accept the fact that we do have an auric field because they've been so heavily indoctrinated with the whole system that they can't, their ability to communicate is so disrupted that they can't. And that's okay. That's their lesson as a soul. Their soul makeup came here to understand what true dysregulation feels like what it physically feels like. People that, and I deal with a lot, I can't even tell you, a lot of people with brain health, like mental illness. People that, want to take their lives, people that have taken their lives, people that get everything from pre-CTE, which then causes them on a loop process to not be able to function at all. Talk about a loop. That's one of the loops that, in my opinion, is very receptor driven and we can completely fix.
I think one good example, let's just try this for someone you're working with as a client, right? When you're reading their field and helping them out to find some type of balance. Let's go to like extreme trauma, like shell shock trauma. I feel like shell shock trauma and like a deep emotional trauma, like something like sexual abuse,
Yeah.
is huge, because something like sexual abuse would be referred to as like a moral injury, because there's something done in the psyche that causes an emission of shame, and combined with pleasure, and then confusion. And so that even goes into someone's like identity. And so there's like a severe disconnect with someone, to where like some people would call, they require like some type of soul retrieval. And if they have no guidance on how to retrieve back their soul themselves, they're going to go through life with so much dissonance and discord that they're going to have biological dysfunction, cellular dysfunction. So I'd love for you to kind of break down something extreme like that.
So someone, let's just go based off that. They would, measurement wise, like if you were to pull up that field again, there's like a shootout at the base of the spine. The measurement one, the Curlian one, there's a shootout at the base of that spine. Okay. That right there to me looks like for me, ECS wise, it looks like he has, see the shootout where his butt is?
It's about this right here.
No, the blue one. See the blue body, the 3 bodies up?
Yeah, I see.
The one on the far right. See,
right.
See that butt shootout?
Yeah, exactly.
See how in front of it it's deficient and broken?
Right.
To me, it looks like he did have sexual abuse. Because that shows an energetic imprint of something being deficient on the front side, the urogenital space, which would be measured within the meridian channel. And then the base, the coccyx, the sacral, the spine, that lower lumbar space is going to be blown out. And this is for me, what's happening, like the base root of what's happening is the receptors are overexpressed. Again, we were talking about it on our other conversation. When you have an overexpressed receptor, something that's constantly staying open and in a loop cycle, and what keeps that going is chemicals. Okay. So the chemicals keep this open. So you're constantly calling for something to come. Okay. That's what's happening. And for it to be able to ever go really down, you need to hit the receptors first and then work at it from there, because the receptors are the things that need to be tended to start getting back into balance, so it can actually be able to send the right signals. When it's expressed, it doesn't have the ability or the ATP from the mitochondria to come here and send the right information. It just doesn't have the ability. It's doing other shit in the body, okay? Or it's just disrupted and can't get there. So we need to, when there's an expression that is overexpressed, someone's outer energy is shot out of their sacral, shot out of their coccyx, and in the front is cut in and deficient, that to me, like visually, looks like that person definitely has a trauma, and it's probably a sexual trauma, And so to fix that, you need to start tending to root things that are going to help establish root connections. This is everything from the very first, from the receptor level, all the way to like the very physical grounding aspect of things. Like you need to go and put your feet in soil. You need to go and tend to your ability to trust yourself. That's the first step, is like they beat themselves up because they think that it was their fault. A lot of people, especially little kids, because you don't have or know a difference that if it's not my fault or yes, it is. You don't know, So right. They carry this guilt, like they were the issue, and that this is the thing. First of all, we have to dismantle that. and that is trusting yourself. That is learning to trust yourself that no, you weren't the issue. Like, no, actually, there are people with such, and I don't like to call anybody, and I know this sounds really kind of fucked up in a way, but I don't really like to look at anybody as like bad. I like to look at them as broken. Because people, in my opinion, are just broken, and literally from an energetic standpoint to like an actual physical standpoint, we are broken, and no one's bad. We can get back into coherence. It's just, does that person have the willpower to want to, or do they even want to? There's two aspects of the self. Like, there's our front, the passionate, and then there's the will. Can we get this shit done or not? And a lot of people don't have the ability to match the two together, so they really can't like change. Do you know what I'm saying? That takes someone that really wants to move past this discoherence, and that in itself, the will to do that, oftentimes just fixes it itself energetically, and then physically things start falling into line. But this is just how the trauma works. And so when you see that root stuff, the way that you would work with root stuff is you would take certain types of herbal teas that are very grounding for you too, and use a lot of red light therapy in and around the base chakra. So the chakra comes out of the coccyx. So you would put red light therapy there, and or sun yourself, put things that are going to charge you on a cellular communication level for you to get the ability to start getting back to the self, to get back in communication with yourself. Because people are so out of whack. We have no place to start, but we really could go just from our very first heartbreak and just start there, and then just work through everybody's fucking heartbroken. I can just tell you that, everybody's.
Yeah, I wonder what the relationship is with that, and like in reference to like pornography too. Because pornography is also like a looping factor of like an addiction, right? Like, and that could also cause some type of dissonant trauma for someone, because they're completely disconnecting from like their sexual orientation. You know what I mean? Especially from a young age, which can really like cause some discord within someone's belief systems, the way they identify themselves. I mean, that's like a virus in itself, what I think, because like, especially for men, I'm speaking from like a man's perspective, having a relationship with pornography and having so much shame after and continuing that cycle. It's like an abusive relationship. You know what I mean? Like, but I didn't know any better. You know what I mean? No one taught me that that's an abusive relationship. And, but I saw it later as I awakened to myself, like it became this realization that was a virus to rid men of their manhood and also their identity as a man and like their role they're playing on this planet, and through human evolution. So I saw it as poison, and it was a lot, actually pretty easy to kick that habit. But I could definitely see how that could actually affect someone too, right? Like they're having constant shame with addiction, right? And they're just looping in a cycle with something. And now they're just like completely disconnected from their energetic field, where it's like just they're not communicating well now at all. Now they're going to open up the receptor to now constantly want to continue that behavior. It's pretty interesting.
It stays open. Like it truly chemically stays open. So unless we're changing the chemicals and changing the baseline, it's going to stay in a loop process. This is what I've seen from people that have seizures. So if we don't change their baseline, like truly change their baseline, their seizures are always going to stay there. But we can get rid of seizures. Seizures people don't gotta suffer from seizures, okay? And seizures come from a lot of different types of issues, whether it be a traumatic brain injury or born with them, or late onset through some type of like bacterial or parasitic infection. Something like that causes these types of seizures, and so we can fix it. It's just we have to. Everybody's body type is in a very specific. It's like a very specific node, okay, within the whole symphony. Every single person. So to find that person's makeup, to do that, you have to measure their energetic field. You like literally can't just do it in DNA. I mean, that's one part of the self. Saliva, one part of the self. Stool, urine, one part of the self. Like to get the total measurement of someone's makeup, it's the total biofield too, period. Like there would be nothing else to measure it to. That is the total of who we are. And so when I work, I take the total makeup, just like that field that was shown. And I use my naturopathic background. I do brain measurements for EEG. So I can understand people's brain waves also and understand how to match it to their field and then match it to their physical imprint, like their saliva, their DNA, so that we can understand exactly how, or I can, because I'm my only practicer, so that I can understand how someone's total body is to actually be able to bring them back into attunement. And the way I do that is through the receptors and the enzymes, and the proteins and the lipids. And that's how I'm able to bring people back into it in a physical form outside of just telling them to go outside into nature, because nature is the attunement. Like people that are suffering, in my opinion, that are in that are firefighters, let's just say, or paramedics, you guys, it should be part of your like life protocol to spend as much time in nature as much time as you do inside the facility or inside the truck. And that should just be like part of your life protocol, because that's part of the balance. If you go from being inside wires, inside boxes, inside discoherent light, inside sounds that are flaring up your receptors, that are keeping them expressed so you can never come back into a solid state of circadian rhythm. Your light cycle is off because the receptors in the retina don't communicate the proper information to the space. It's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus. The SCN is where all of this information goes as far as light that goes there and actually modulates our total makeup of like our biorhythm, how we are in the morning, how we are in the evening. And if we don't receive the right type of daylight and sunlight and nighttime, we never really get to be able to get set back into rhythm. So you guys that are in like service for people and for the people that are doing police, paramedics, firemen, anybody of service in the hospitals that are on these schedules of like, 72 hours, it should really be a part of your guys' protocol, like life protocol, to match outdoor time to your indoor time. And then make sure that you're taking CBD like in quantity, meaning about 300-ish milligrams a day on your days that you're actually in practice, like that you guys are actually in your, facilities, in your vehicles, because that's going to help your rhythms balance. Otherwise, you guys are full on putting yourselves in an excitatory process, in a fight or flight process, because you guys are on call. So your adrenals and your kidneys are flared pretty much 3 days in a row. And that is not really healthy for the human body. We don't want you guys to stay in a high heightened state of adrenal fatigue, because then you can start losing the ability for your organs to function better. Everything is built on an access point here in our body for our brain to communicate with our gut. Like you said, really the gut and the receptors are the main modulators. Okay. So receptors receive, the gut transfers and sends the information up and down the gut brain axis. Yes, we receive input. Yes, we do. We receive sensory input up here. We receive majority of input though right here because we're consumers. So we consume stuff. We consume water, foods, and junk. Okay. So and that takes a lot of physiological processing for us to be able to like do. Right. Yeah. So that's what it is. But you guys would need to be able to balance your bodies back while you're actually in action, and then be able to get back into a biorhythm so you're not overexpressing your receptors, to put you guys in a constant loop cycle that is never really going to find an ability to balance itself. It wants to, and it tries to on your days off. But even at that, if you guys aren't in a natural rhythm, it doesn't know how to get into tune. it would be cool, like, because our body knows consistency. Like if you did 3 days on and 3 days off, your body would know how to then attune yourself. But if you're constantly flared, constantly in fight or flight, constantly going fast, and in your mind and your body can't come into coherence, you're setting your guys' selves up for serious mental health issues and gut digestion issues down the line, which would then end up being muscle issues and bone issues and stuff like that. Once it wears and tears on your gut, it's going to go to other spaces and places.
Well, that's exactly what's been happening. And I was, before we recorded this episode, because it was the second recording,
yeah.
I was telling you, like, my main priority is to find out solutions for the chronic inflammation and chronic pain issue we have, because that is really one of the main markers of why we deal with so many issues, because we're in chronic pain. Like, how can you feel at peace when you're in fucking pain all the time? Like, and I can speak from experience. I know what it feels like to have pain all the time. Like, I had it for years, and it was a slippery slope in a sense where like I felt like I was drowning in pain, discomfort, and agony, and I would just numb it with alcohol. So my body was just in such disarray, because now I'm like just now filling my body with poison, because I had no other solution for the pain I was in. So I've just been constantly trying to figure it out. But now
what alcohol does to our receptors and why it feels good and why it numbs. It shuts our receptor ability down to receive. Except for certain receptors that then kind of portal off into like this. It's a huge dopamine kick. So it kind of, and glutamate. Okay. So it kind of puts you into this like space and place. And then it kind of plays with the little tiny bits of serotonin, tiny bit, but in a way where it's throwing it off. It's not really putting it on, And so it puts you in this state of just like, you can't receive, but like it then like kind of just suppresses your receptivity. It's not that you just can't receive, it suppresses it. And more and more and more, the more and more you drink, the more it affects your receptors to ever get back its ability to charge back and to receive. And again, we have trillions of receptors, like I would say hundreds of trillions. And so it's okay if we lose 100 million, that's fine. But we don't want to lose a lot. Do you know what I'm saying? Because then we start getting brain issues. But there is a limit. And that's what's so wonderful about this human makeup is like we can and have the ability to make mistakes. And we do. And it is okay. Like no one is bad. No one is so fucking awful that they just, they're. Now, we could look at a few people and say, yes, those people like, pedophiles and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're fucking broken. And they, I bet, got, raped or whatever when they were a child too. And it probably was something that was forced and pushed on them that made them be as corrupt as they are. So we have to understand that no one is necessarily born into corruption. It's pushed on us, whether it be from in the womb setting or when we get outside of the womb. But it is definitely not something that, as divine as what we come from, it's not naturally who we are. That's not our basis, I should say. DNA really creates the basis. But anyways, that long story short, that's I could go on and on and on down the rabbit.
No. I was getting back to the chronic pain thing because I know it is one of the main issues. And I know like, because what you were explaining was like my lifestyle is like constantly, and I'm so much aware of it, where I guess I can, after a day off, I'm completely back into what I feel is harmony, right? I don't know if I took a picture on this machine what my biofield would look like, but the thing with me is like I have to sometimes just accept it, right? If I fight it with my thoughts, now I'm causing myself much more harm. So at some point, like the suck, I just have to accept the suck. You know what I mean? I'm not going to change that. So I try not to waste my energy on things I can't control. So one thing the thing I can control are my thoughts and how I feel about things. So that's something that's in my power. So that is something I'm constantly working with, and then working with the nervous system regulation
Mhm.
and knowing how my gut brain axis is activating this important uh, just connection to how the whole organism is going to start completing its serotonin cycle. Like 90% of serotonin comes from the gut, and so if I just feed my body with like bleached white flour and, you know, whatever it is, what else is there? It's poison. Red 40 and sugar. Yeah, sugar is the worst, right? And so I make it a priority for me to make sure I'm functioning at an optimal level as much as I can
Mhm.
because of what I'm facing against, you know. So other than that, I just want to make sure like there are solutions to this. It's not just like the end game of like you have to be in pain and you have to just like be unconscious to yourself. Because a lot of people are afraid to open up to their own awareness because they don't want to face the truth, of
So
themselves.
there's certain things that shut down the receptors for pain, and that is cannabinoids because it mirrors what it needs. Okay, so cannabinoids is one of the best things to take for pain. CBD, CBG, both of those are fantastic for pain. CBC is also really good. Now, as far as for a terpene profile, beta caryophyllene is fantastic for pain. They've actually had clinical trials that show that it is like the morphine. It is ultimately what they do is they take all plants and then synthesize its makeup into something else that they can patent. And so beta caryophyllene is morphine, essentially, for us to understand its pain makeup and how it took and how it was able to create morphine was incorporating a synthetic aspect of beta caryophyllene into it. And so that's part of why morphine works so well, is because it has a fractal imprint of what beta caryophyllene does for us. And so it's called BCP short term. So people that want to trigger and or down regulate their receptors, which will down regulate all the other pain and put you into more of a balance within your nervous system to put you in balance with all the other systems, is going to be beta caryophyllene and it's going to be myrcene. It's going to be CBD. Certain people can do THC as one of those, basically suppressors and or regulators of the receptors, but also certain people can't digest THC. So it's not really advised to use because sometimes it can actually excite the person to think that they have more pain versus actually work on the receptors to have the receptors go back into balance. And that comes down to the person digesting, like actually literally digesting the molecule in their liver and or through their brain neuroprocesses. So that's just based on that. And if we can, then it really works well for pain. It's one of the best things for pain. Otherwise, there's other really amazing compounds out there. But as far as like cannabinoid driven, CBD, beta caryophyllene, and myrcene are going to be the ones, like if you're searching for products out in the world, those are the ones that you're going to want to look for so that you can get those in your body. Those are going to, again, help the receptors not be so overexpressed. And then
Terpenes is just like aroma, right?
Terpenes are, yeah, they're hydrocarbon molecules. So they are like all things we smell, taste, and eat. So they're in cannabis, but they're also in like all floral smells. They're in all the fruits, all the veggies. They're in wheat. They're in all things that we smell. They're in poo poo. They're in literally like terpenes can be, it's aromatic makeup and it's molecules put together to make and express an aromatic profile.
Yeah, because I saw you had like these terpene things that you sniff, right? So like, and they all have they serve a different function.
They do. Yeah. So that's what I mean by like help down regulate or activate a receptor. So that's the first intake again. So when we talk nervous system is secondary to me. I look at the ECS because the ECS is what regulates the nervous system. It regulates its ability to either go into what state or the other based on the information it's receiving first and then passing to the nervous system. passing to the respiratory, to the endocrine. It passes information to that so it can then go and do its information. But based on the receptors, if they're overexpressed or not active, is based on the information that then gets to the nervous system. So
I wonder what it would be like if someone just tested firefighters and cops and like veterans, like what they would like find the commonalities, even like individually of each different career too, because I think it's so distinctly different, but very similar, right? So I
yeah,
wonder what would happen if like someone took pictures of like someone's fields and like started to study them, because I feel like that would take a huge chunk of the epidemic of what firefighters deal with, right? Because suicide is the number one way we reach our demise now.
yeah.
That and cancer. So if you got, this is the three ways I'm seeing guys basically are dying. It's either cancer. Guys will get cancer on the job. They will have they will retire and get cancer, and or they commit suicide on the job, and or drink themselves to death. So it's like this very like strange similar thing, but it's all so related to like whatever's happening, across the board on the totality of the whole.
I could tell you like right away, first of all, it's all adrenal driven. Like if we were to look at everybody's HPA axis, so this is your hypothalamus and your adrenal access point, understanding what hormones are actually able to transfer in that space, and then the gut brain axis. If just those two were to be able to be studied, whether it be through their field or whether it be through the saliva or the DNA, understanding what's happening there, I can just tell you baseline, every single one of you is dealing with that just because knowing your schedule. And if that's your schedule, there's no way you can't not be out of your biorhythm. And your biorhythm is your circadian rhythm. It's your ability to be able to wake up properly with energy and go to bed and actually sleep sound. And if you can't do that basic part of everyday function, that is the main hormonal disruptor that is going to keep you in a fight or flight process, period. And the only way you can start regulating yourself is via light and via the six senses with the support of cannabinoids. Like it's just that simple. Like there really is no other way to get you back into a biorhythm where your body knows itself without you doing consistency. And
yeah, I was gonna say, like, what the hell are we supposed to do? Like
well, it's not necessarily what you got. The system is fucked. Okay. It's not necessarily you guys and you guys being able to do anything about it, because the system itself is broken. And so we can look at the very first aspect of, wow, this system up there is so corrupt and so broken that they just want operators. And to them, people are just operators. And to us, we're much more than that. Like we are individuals. We do have power. We are phenomenal, But to the people that control this dynamic, they make people stay in a state of constant repetition for us to be able to burn out, because that is looshing our energy field. When you look at that field, you see sectors cut out almost like it's deficient. This means that there's no energy. Like it doesn't have energy.
So they're missing like a huge chunk of like their entire like their voltage of their body.
That's what I'm saying.
What type of symptoms was this person experiencing?
So this person's a caregiver.
Oh, wow.
She's a caregiver of her husband, who is a late stage MS patient of mine.
Holy shit.
And she, in my opinion, this is cut out in all of her cerebral, in her thyroid, in her heart, in her circulatory, in her coronary vessels, her immune, her gut. All those areas don't have energy, meaning that her physical vessel is not working in those areas. It is low voltage. You said that we were energetic beings. It is low voltage. It's there, but it is low voltage, meaning its ability to be there is not, and so, but to charge that is different. Now pull up the other one. So that one is someone who started working with me. Okay. And you can see all of the missing spaces and places. This person's body is missing quite a few spaces and places too, but not as heavily chunked. There's definitely a lot more coherence in the field, I guess you could say. But now click the next picture. See how there's no missing parts anymore?
Oh, yeah.
That it's a full field.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, it's not a perfect field, but it's definitely not broken like it was before. So what that says to me is that we have energy flow to all organ centers, and that we're actually back online. I consider it being back online. When someone's offline and parts of their energy field they're not lit up, that literally means there is no energy to that organ center. And so no wonder they would be sick in that organ center. No wonder they would have discoherences or a cancer or an autoimmune or a this or a that, because there's no energy, like physically, like not there. So how are we going to get them back online? That's what I do. I tune people back online. I put them back online. I get them back into a stasis, a functional stasis, so they can experience homeostasis in bouts of therapy. Because I can bring people to a 0 point, meaning that their brain waves are this, they get completely into a theta state. They zero out. So they're actually able to heal. Okay. So that they can get into this stasis of like, our cellular attunement can start talking again. This is what we need to come back online, is our cells being back into communication. What we need is people to be back into communication again. What we need is communities to be back into communication again. This is what helps us thrive to be the best makeup experience that we can actually be, and to attune them, I work with the 6 senses. So this guy has had sound bed therapy. He's had hyperbaric chamber. He's had terpene and cannabinoid therapies for consistently for 3 months. So he's been on my regimen for 3 months. Every day he takes a product or smells the stick. And then he does a therapy session with me every Monday. And that's how we've gotten him back into the state where he is able to function. And now that we're in that state, we're going to get him off of his SSRIs and off of his other pharma medicines that he's on, like Ambien and other things like that, because now he has the ability to do that. Before, he didn't have the ability because he was so out of coherence. He didn't have the energy to do it. It wasn't there. The mitochondrial and the ATP functioning was not fucking communicating. The CB1 receptors sit with the mitochondria on every cell, and it brings the information to the mitochondria. So the mitochondria can send ATP where it needs to go and what it needs to do. That's how that works.
Yeah, it's crazy how someone has to rewind everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was crazy too, because I literally was just having this conversation with a captain that came to our station. We were talking about what we all experience at the firehouse is like this thing we're having as administrative betrayal, like let alone what we have to do at work, what we have to show up to as. We have to, do our regular job, right? But what we are experiencing right now is we are seen just as like a number, like you're just an etch. And you're nothing. You feel like you're nothing because you're just a part of this machine that sees humans as like these assets. Like you're not even seen as like a soul. And it feels like there's like a sense of like neglect that everyone experiences, and it just like it destabilizes like who we are as human beings. And so like our worth is taken from us because we're seen as like a number. And like that's why PTSD is becoming what it is, because not only do we feel what we're feeling and experiencing just by the job itself, and we're experiencing chronic pain and this general sense of disconnection, But the people who are here to support us just see us as like as an asset, and we're just like a consequence of like this machine that has to keep moving and moving and moving and cycling. And so like that's why there's no one talks about this stuff. They don't want to admit that they're part of the problem, and they don't want to have any solutions because they have to take some type of liability to it. That they're invading what we see as human, as ourselves as human beings, and we're being sent with just a bunch of paperwork and prescriptions, and we don't feel like we're getting reimbursed with like that affection or that support. So we have to see it from each other, like as firefighters and as first responders. We have to get it from one another as our peers. And so like it's a fucking dislocation. And how do you put a dislocation together like that? You know, it's just really severe. So this is just one atom of the equation. Like that's at a collective level of what we feel. And like when we talked about this around the kitchen table, like there was no solution. Like there was just hollow words. You know what I mean? And he even knows, and it's hollow words. And all he said was like, the only thing you can do is like within these walls, like the cohesion you guys have as a crew. That's the only thing that's gonna save you guys. And what I was saying was like, well, that's already hanging by a thread because of how much abuse we feel like we get. And I'm speaking from not just my department, but we're speaking from multiple departments nationwide. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But on top of that, like what we're hit with right now, like, oh, we had like this huge wildfire, right? The Palisades. And we had all this sympathy, like, oh my God, the firefighters did such a great job. Amazing, amazing. And what happened after that? The mayor fired our fire chief. And so now we're stuck with so much of, now we're dealing with this budget cuts. They wanted to cut our pay. Like that morning of the Palisades fire, they told us they were going to close stations down and cut our pay. So like, this is the type of shit we deal with when we show up to work and we have to do our job. But on top of that, there's all this political bullshit where you have like a mayor who says they had $1 billion sent to homeless people when there's nothing done with the homeless people. So it's like, we see all this shit. It's crazy, right? But like, and then we get sucked into that, right? That sucks us in. It grabs our attention, and then that robs us of what we need to put attention on, which is like how to get rid of our emotional debris. How do we take care of our inner traumas? How do we take care of our gut brain axis? How do we take care of our cohesion of how we're working with in connection to nature? How do we work with going home and being a good father and a good mother? Like those things that are of utmost importance need to have more of our attention on, but these other things are distracting us. And so I'm very careful with what are our distractions, because they're meant to keep you from putting your attention on what's most important, which is your family and your health. Totally. Like health is wealth and family is medicine.
Yeah.
So like those two things, like those are my number one priorities. And like the job comes like maybe like 10th down the line if it's not my priority. So because I am seeing like a number, and what if that paradigm shifted when you're seeing more than a number, you're seeing more as a soul being that's showing up in this work that's of service to other people, to your community, that's putting these fires out, or as a paramedic that's saving your grandma, or that's saving your kid that's in a car accident who drank. You know what I mean? So these are the things people have to bring in perspective. But there's silence with it because we feel there's a sense of these golden handcuffs, because we feel like we don't want to speak up because we're afraid of the repercussions that's going to happen, because we want to get our pension when we hit 30 years or whatever. But that's the thing, is guys aren't even making it to 30 years. They're not even making it to 15, maybe 20, because of their illnesses and their disease in their body. You know what I mean? So
because their bodies listen, I've worked with thousands of bodies, thousands. There's no way on planet Earth can one get into coherence when you're on the schedule that you're on. It's quite literally, and I know that may sound like a bummer, but it's quite literally impossible. You
feel like I know that truth already.
Yeah, and so like what you have to work with is you have to get into a biorhythm. You have to get into a rhythm that your self knows is consistent, because otherwise, when we're constantly throwing inconsistencies at the rhythm, it's going to stay out of coherence, period. Like it just, that's not how energy works. It just doesn't get back into balance because you fucking slept for 8 hours. It doesn't happen that way. You may get a good little sleep, but that doesn't mean that your body's regulated at all. You know, you can start feeling good, but you need to sleep for days consistently at the same time for our body to get into an attunement. And so, like, first responders, paramedics, you guys, everybody that is in service full time, that is literally full time, cannabinoids and honestly, the right type of pain relieving salves are going to be the best things for you guys to regulate while you're on call. So when you're off call, you can get into nature and you can create a rhythm to where at least you're in nature at least an hour a day, at least an hour a day. It may be hard for some people, but like you got 3 days off, spend an hour in the fucking park. You know, if you don't have a mountain near you, go to the park or go swim, you know, go be not chlorine, go into the ocean, go into a lake, go into someplace that's safe so you can go and start getting a part of nature because there are frequencies, a part of that help attune us. It helps attune us naturally. It's better than any therapy ever, because it has the right sounds for you. It has everything perfect for you. Now, it may not be compacted, so like you feel it the way that you feel, let's say CBD, or you feel it like the way you feel a pain relief salve, but it is over time going to regulate your rhythms. It's going to regulate your cellular attunement, which is then going to keep your cells. We have telomeres on the end of all of our DNA, and this is our like lifelong longevity. When we have these little telomeres start going away, this is how we age quicker. Stress, trauma, adrenal fatigue, discoherences make our telomeres get shorter quicker. When we have the right enzymes and cannabinoids, it helps rebuild and stabilize the telomeres so they're not able to degrade as quickly. So we want to be able to at least take the right things to help on a minimal scale that will help with mental health, that will help with digestion, that will help with sleep when you sleep, that will help with anxiety and PTSD, that will help move energy stuck on your cells out. Because like I said, emotions stay stuck on our cells, not in fascia. They stay stuck in our cells, and then fascia expresses it when it's being twerked, twisted, modulated, pushed, compressed, whatever it is. That's why you're triggering a receptor, because you're modulating it. You're expressing it. Otherwise, we need to be able to express it as naturally as we can, and that's through cannabinoid intake or through a high fat lipid intake, because that's going to help you be in balance with yourself.
You know, what's
so
crazy
that's
is
the
like
best that anybody can do that's in your space and place. Those are like the minimal basic things that they could start introducing into their life, honestly.
If you Google adrenal fatigue, like WebMD will say that adrenal fatigue is not recognized as a medical condition. There's no, yeah, that says that there's no scientific evidence that's seen as like a medical imbalance. So I was, because I had looked into that before, like with like my acupuncturist years ago, because like my acupuncturist like, oh, you have, you know, issues with your kidneys, and I've always known I have had issues with my kidneys. It's one of my major imbalances, and so my acupuncturist is like, oh, you have adrenal fatigue, and I would like research it, you know, and I was like looking into it, and then even doing Ayurvedic medicine, finding out like how my doshas were interacting with my adrenals, and like same thing. It all led to my adrenals, and I was like, okay, let me look this up, and like I just Googled it, adrenal fatigue, and what came up was basically like that's not recognized, and so like most doctors will never look at what your adrenals are doing, you know, and it's pretty fucking simple, right? If your nervous system is dysregulated, you're in some sort of adrenal fatigue because you're going in fight or flight, right? and you're
Period.
constantly revving up the system. It's like you're revving up the RPMs of your engine constantly, like just constantly revving up. And there's no bogging down to like a basis for it to rest. And if you're not putting oil or anything like in that, you're going to run dry. Or any
Totally.
gasoline, right? You're going to run dry. So
Totally.
that's why guys are constantly stress eating because
Yes.
they think they need fuel to fuel this fucking engine. But in essence, it's just constantly just in fight or flight. So that's why a lot of guys have just like that. I call them like the love buckets, you know, like this, like the guys end up looking like a pear because they end up like eating so much food and they're still active, but they're just putting all that weight to just get stuck on like the sides of your waist.
Well,
And it's just
that's where your cells are holding on to the emotion, you know?
Right. And like the image of like the archetype of a firefighter, right? It's like the calendar firefighter with like crisp cut abs and like in turnouts, right? But most firefighters are extremely overweight. And especially after they hit age 40. You know what I mean? Like
That's totally their adrenals. I mean, they can't move any type of hormones. That's the testosterone, and that's like the whole thing. I mean, they're just that HPA axis is in my opinion, anybody that is unregulated with their sleep. And this is really comes down to even me. I have at times adrenal fatigue and it boosts back up in my system because I ran my body so hard for like 10 years. And I worked so heavily and I was so off schedule with my like daily sleep that it was different every day for years on end that it threw my body off, you know? So it's taken me about 6 to 7 years to get back into regulation to where I can actually sleep for like 6 hours in the night without waking up, you know, because otherwise the chemicals in the body aren't able to let you completely get into a state of sleep, which is your theta state, which is where we want to get into this deep space of cellular cleaning so that we can clean our body on a daily basis. Otherwise, if we're not able to clean out the debris, clean out the excess looped hormones, the excess looped, you know, things that are the transmitters that won't and or are over transmitting, over firing, we can't move those through our system because we can't basically move the fluids from the brain to the spine and back and burst. How are we going to clean anything out? And so people need to give themselves grace. A lot of this is done to us, and we actually are put into this situation. A lot of us, like we yes, we choose the industry that we're in, but like this is like how our reality is built. You know, like we have to have these community fire stations because this is what the system built. You know, it's because there's no one else that knows how to tend to helping community. No one else has like a little community fire truck. No one, it's not how we're built. You know, we're built within a structure and a system, and they run us like dogs. They like literally want us to be of this production, but they don't want us to succeed with the production. It's like they want us in the production line, and that's great. And once we realize this, we can actually start getting our fields back. Once you accept your reality and can digest your reality and stop fighting your reality, that in itself is more receptivity. Because a lot of people hate their stuff. Like they can't believe that this is their life, even though they chose it. Like they chose the path. They wanted to be the doctor, you know, they wanted to be this, and then they hate it. It's like, okay, well, you know, that doesn't really make any sense to me, you know? So first of all, people need to accept their reality. Once they accept that this is all their choice, that they choose their daily life, then you can make change. But everybody's fighting the fact that they make their own choices. Majority of people stay in the victim mindset because they had a trauma done to them as a child. We have to start knowing and realizing that we have the ability to change things, but we can't like stay in a victim mindset in order to be able to change it. We have to accept that this is what it is and then make the change. And then hopefully you'll find like-minded people to start building something with. to start being able to have like a community of like-minded people. And then that can spread to more like a village, to this and that, then we have a whole society of people that are out there with the same like type rhythm, knowing that yes, we have been put in this situation, but like we are so much more deserving of what we've been basically handed. Like we really deserve much more nature. We really deserve much more family. We really deserve really good soil dense, rich foods. Like we really deserve certain things that have been just shed from us, and it's okay because we're all in that state. Like we're all deficient. We are all, even the people that are good, are not good, because that's what human experience, that's where we're at as a collective. And until we can get more cellular attunement, more human attunement, we're always going to be like fighting ourselves, basically, and like we'll never be able to get to like, I love myself. I'm in homeostasis. Like, I love what I do. I love being of service. Like, because there are passionate people that start in the field and they want to make a change. Like, they're there to help people. They're there to help find a cure. But then they get burnt out and then they hate it, And it's like, well, like you chose this, and the only reason why you hate it is because the system forced you to do this much. The system forced you to be this active when really a couple days a week is just fine. You don't need to be 3 days in a row. Like literally and actually, you don't need to be. That's fucking retarded. Okay. You could be there on a Monday and a fucking Friday, and everybody else be scheduled in between too. There's no reason to be 3 days except for through the system's perspective. And that is a corrupt way to live life. We have to all start understanding that we are in the rat race, and to get out of it, we have to collectively be like, they're rat racing us. We all have to be there. Each one of us can get there, kind of, but together, in order to like see a change in an industry, you guys have to come together and be like, no, they're after us, and they do not want us to survive. They only want our loosh energy, and then they're okay with us dying. They actually don't give a fuck about us. It's okay. Like, and that's okay for us to know it's okay, but like, let's do something different. Let's ask for a different schedule collectively. Let's do something different collectively so we can see the change and see our well-being be taken care of, because we're the ones caretaking the world,
Yeah, you're speaking a harsh truth that no one wants to hear. And I know some people they're really adamant about this schedule, this 24-hour platoon schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been trying so hard to make a change with it, like nationwide. And there's been a couple departments who've adjusted to it, and it's just really difficult. And there's some people who are addicted to working this schedule now because that's all they know, that's all they understand, that's all they've experienced. And so now this lifestyle is imprinted onto them, believing that this is what is the only thing that matters. So there's an expression that there's two things that firefighters don't like, and it's change and the way things are. So it's like, how do you get these people to realize and awaken, like, hey, what is going on here, and how do we bring the essence of what's most important? I really think it's our values, because when we have our values, we will now build these laws now to support our values, and those values that are principles that are set in stone, then these laws that are built up to create it. You know what I mean? So it's just really difficult and challenging for us as first responders to figure it out, because it has to happen with not the administration, but it's more so the people who are actually working, because those are the people that really have the voice, that those are the people that matter the most, and those are the people that are going to make the great change, because they're the ones experiencing the experience in itself.
Some people also come here to never come to that awareness, you know? So
like an NPC.
Yeah, like that's the challenge. Like, well, I was thinking earlier today, like it's so wild that, we all do come here with a beautiful ability to be able to remember who we are, our dignity, our sovereignty, but through the free will choices that are pressed on us, And we're given choices. We are given choices. We don't actually have certain amounts of free will in certain areas of the world. Like here in America, like they they do everything that they can to make it hard for us to be healthy. You know, even the organic food is not organic food.
Right.
Our options, our choices that they give us, they're not really what we really want. Like, and we've been set in this society, and it's hard to break away and go live a farm life. It's hard to just move to another country. Most people can't just get up and go. So we're stuck in this space and place where we have to play this game that is not in our favor. And so just that first baseline is like, it's not in our favor. We can come to acceptance of that too, in our favor, you know, and that's just, it's just what it is, you know? We'll start really being able to move past their discoherences once the awareness is there. But you can't force awareness onto anybody. It's only through their own experiences that they will become aware. And so we just have to stay focused on each individual self and know that this is our job, is this. Outside is not necessarily our job. To remember our own divinity is a job in itself. And so we should focus on that, you know. It's a pretty big deal, you know.
Yeah, that's something I've been preaching a lot is to honor the essence of self. Like if you don't take care of that, then you're hitting I mean, that's the basis of human experience in itself. And to realize that takes time and patience, you know. Thank you for saying that. I really appreciate someone actually coming to a recognition of actually realizing that and then saying it because of how important it is.
It's so it's the only way that I see healing happen is when people tend to the self, you know, and there's two aspects to the self. And so if they're only tending to one, the healing doesn't necessarily happen. It only happens on one aspect of it. You really want that counter, that balance, the this, the that, the yin, the yang, the black, the white. You want that. You want the physical and the energetic, because otherwise you're just really tending to an aspect of the self. And the self is encompassed with energy and physicality. And that's something that I wish more people would respect of themselves, because then they'd get to know themselves. You know, it's like so beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, you're only speaking from experience because you experienced it yourself, you know. And then we don't. It's not our responsibility for someone else to have that experience. And now I think people get caught up in that. They lose themselves in the fact that you're not here to save someone. You're not here to be someone else's savior complex. The only thing you can do is just lead them and teach them, and then also unwind what they had learned that's just wrong. And so I think that's the hope that I have to do, is to uplift and inspire through this platform because of my own pain, my own suffering. And I wish people don't go through what I have gone through. And so I just hope people are able to just listen through my own vulnerability, to have other people speak their own truth of what they do the same thing, to not have them go through their own suffering and their own traumas, so we can move past it and just see each other as a guiding force, as a map, to understand how we can expand beyond what has been set for us to be in discord. I just want to close with this. I did want to ask, you know, what do you think would be the best things that you offer on your website for first responders to kind of harmonize everything we talked about to help with like pain or whatever, and like our sleep cycle?
So there's a few products that definitely are amazing. So tinctures are amazing. So I have a few different types of tinctures. I have a terpene infused tincture, and then also just regular cannabinoids. Depending on which direction you want to go would be what type of product. And if you need help with that, you can contact me or do your own research. But basically, I have the tinctures. The store muscle salve is the most amazing thing for pain. And I also have a terpene pain salve, which is just terpenes with not as much CBD, but with a little CBD, versus our CBD pain salve. So it's different. They, certain people like one or the other. Most people combine them together to get even more pain receptors relieved. It's all about the quantity of pain receptors that you're tending to. So when you take a product, you want to quantify the amount of receptors that you're hitting. And that means you want to hit different ones, not just one route, not just, let's say, your TRPV. You don't want just that one being tended to. You want to hit your CB1s, you want to hit your PPARs, you want to hit all your other TRPV2s, all these other ones that are going to help be the overexpressed receptors. We want to tend to those so that they're getting closed and they're not calling out for help and they're not calling and screaming pain. So the more receptors that you tend to, the better. And if you can do it from a tincture and a topical and a smell, you're hitting all receptors. You're hitting so many quantified receptors than you are just by taking a tincture, just by using a salve, or just by using the nasal inhaler, because you're hitting all different types of them in all different sectors. So there's this nasal inhaler, which depending on whatever anybody's issue is, I have one for cognitive health. I have one for and like memory, and then I have one that is more of an immune driven one. I have one that is for your nervous system that really does bring you into balance. We trialed it with 30 people and it worked on everybody. And so that one's really amazing. That one's called our chill product. And then the salve and the tinctures. So those three things would bring someone's completely dysregulated body into a much more coherence, into something where they do not have nearly as much pain, if not full pain gone. It would help regulate their nervous system. It would help their immune system. It would help their ability to sleep. It would help their testosterone. It would help every aspect of who they are, because CBD modulates things that are out of balance and puts them into balance. So whatever's out, you just need to put it back in, and that is based on how much CBD you take.
Dani, thank you so much for your patience and your kindness and your wisdom. It is really powerful stuff. Thank you everyone for listening. Please subscribe YouTube, Spotify, and Apple to get the algorithm moving for helping first responders and also helping humanity.
It's time for crab